So we've had dialogues in the past. The problem is not, of course, National Development Plan itself came as a result of dialogues. There are many other dialogues that have happened, not just nationally, but sectorally, in different parts of the country, different sectors and so on. The problem is not dialogues. It is implementation of things that we're dialoguing about. Implementation, and executive, more implementation.
Before we speak about implementation, how did we get here? Because part of the problem is that there is a president who wants us to have a conversation as a nation about where to next. But the reason we need this conversation is because there are certain things that have not been done. The reason we need this conversation is because there have been certain failures over the last 30 years when the ANC has been in power. And I'm not seeing the place where we are also asking the critical question of how did we get here? So you're trying to avoid accountability, but hey, let's move forward. But how do we move forward when we're not able to see what actually worked, what actually didn't work in the past so that we don't repeat the same mistakes?
Clement Manyathela, you see, you are Nyathela now. You see, you couldn't have put it better because in the same letter, which was published last week, which I wrote to the convener, says Brigadier, the question I'm asking and what I believe should be interrogated is not how we can build another 30 years from now. The age group of the people who are in the eminent persons group is about 70. We'll all be dead in 30 years. It's fine. It's the era of the youth. Now, it's nice to talk about that, how to go forward. But they say those who forget the mistakes of history are bound to commit the same mistakes because you rush headlong without realizing what happened, taking stock, and reflecting. Now, the question I've asked is, of course, how did we end up here? Before we say, how should we go forward? We're stuck. We call these things euphemistically, I say, challenges. It's a crisis, a deep-seated crisis. How did we get here? One, like I said, we've never implemented what is contained in that constitution in terms of the Bill of Rights. Yes, some things have been implemented, but we've avoided those things that needed to be changed. The land question has not been properly settled in this country. We said that there must be proper empowerment of the people of South Africa. That has not been done adequately. I'm going to say that from this side of our table. You should realize I'm sitting around the table with you. Executive decisions have been taken by governments over and over again. Parliament has put a stamp of approval on those decisions. Ministers have taken decisions, things have not been implemented. There are plans and plans and plans and plans. Yeah, but then of course people go into offices to do precisely this. Yeah, to become bosses of people. Then once you've reached that level, it becomes a free flow of wrong things. One, you start appointing the wrong people. Because my cousin, my sister, it's full in the press right now. My cousin, my mother, my sister, my brother, that type of thing. So you start owning this thing. Number two, you start giving contracts and monies. And it's all about government is about budgets, and budgets is about distribution of public money, taxpayers' money. You distribute it anyhow to your friends or relatives, that type of thing. You appoint malcontents, people who are incompetent. They know nothing about their doing. Some people have got very huge degrees, but they don't know how to implement them. Got good marks at university, but doesn't mean that you know the job here. Get somebody from university who knows the job, not somebody who's got good grades but who doesn't know the job. Or people know their jobs, but they decide to avoid because the job has got accountability, it's got responsibilities, it's got rules, regulations, laws. They avoid all those things. So you're going to end up doing as you please. This behavior in Parliament is this person is as I please. I can answer anyhow. And I think we needed this medicine to see them in real action. So this is how they are. So imagine what people will be doing behind their offices in privacy, where they have staff to take care of. You've got directors, chief directors under you. People are frightened. They're scared of you. So things start falling apart. The center doesn't hold. As a result of all the cacophony of these things, it's very easy to steal money. When I came here, you started saying how unsafe it is for people to report. Report what? If you're a whistleblower in this type of situation, you are in danger. It's a health hazard. It's a life hazard. So we've reached a point where everybody more or less has accepted
that
something must give. Yeah. Otherwise, something will break.
But here's the challenge there. where it becomes tricky is
Okay.
because there are many who have. I mean, the former president, Thabo Mbeki, would agree that things have at some point fallen apart. But then it's still the same people like you guys who said vote for the ANC. So things have fallen apart. You see that something has not gone right, but you still go to South Africans and say, vote for this organization. Campaign for them. Now we're sitting with an ANC that's still the biggest party in the GNU that behaves in a manner that we're seeing some of the ministers from the ANC behave. So you told people to vote for them.
I'll answer for myself and for many who believe in what I'm going to say to you. Clement, you must understand the ANC is a contested territory. There are constant fights from the time it was formed until right now. It's a living organism. From time to time, there are certain people who take the steering, the controlling steering of this huge bus. And if it's good people, it's fine. There are times when the steering is taken over by people who mean bad for society. The ANC has experienced all those things. There have been fights, very bitter fights. Some of us have been victims of those types of fights because you talk inside there. It's a fight. The people who want to steal, the people who want to do wrong, the people who want to hide the wrong that they do will do anything and everything to protect themselves, so people will be dragooned into following a particular wrong thing, and that leader gets votes. It's all about, it's a zero-sum game, this thing. So if enough people have been given chicken licking or McDonald's, that's it, they're going to vote that person. Your voice gets drowned. Many good men and women in this country who are members of the ANC have raised these things that are raised by yourself outside, long before you raise them. The end result has been that these fights have led to certain people feeling, it's enough. It has broken into pieces. There are people left, they from COPE, there are people left, they from AFF, this one, from this. It's the ANC that is breaking apart. It's not only the good people who are leaving. Some of them are bad who are leaving. But it's a constant fight inside the ANC to stop the rot, happening right at the bottom of the organization, right until the office of the presidency. Okay, this day, it's quite clear. You can see what is happening out there. We get people you can't hold to account, people who want to rule anyhow. They rule us. They're not even governing. They want to be rulers. If you're a president, you appoint a cabinet, those people are beholden to you. Very few people will challenge such a boss because the boss here's another part of the rot. The boss is responsible. If you're a minister or if you're a premier, we've got MECs, and if you're a mayor, you've got mayoral people. That person who appoints you determines your future. The bond of your house, the car, private schools for children. So very few people are prepared to stand up and say that. I think quite often when they are gone, they start speaking.
So based on the description you've given of the ANC and what's led to people leaving some staying, do you then say, can you confidently sit there and say this is a party to vote for?
I still belong to that party. I'm still part of the fight inside the party, the debates.
But given that mess,
yes,
because sometimes I feel like as South Africans, we pay the price for the infighting in the ANC.
Well, it is also paying the price. Look at the numbers. We're paying the price ourselves. So we're trying to say to people, look what is happening. We used to be in the 60 percentile, right up there. Now it's coming low. This 40% was just a marker. The polls are indicating that we're going even lower than that. Okay? So it's a question of at what stage does this thing give? We're trying to save this organization.
You think it can still be saved?
Well, there's been talks about renewal and so on. Even that,
they've been talking about
yes,
that for
even that
10
renewal.
years.
Yeah, I understand. Even that renewal itself is if people who are in charge of renewal, like I said, if the arsonists want to return as fire brigade leaders
fire brigade leaders,
which is what we must be careful about. This
isn't that the case of the dialogue?
Yes,
arsonists
absolutely
are returning to the crime scene as the fire brigade team.
Yes, from the tattered clothes of the one who started the fire last night, returning dressed up in the bright and flashy uniforms of fire brigade people. So we've got to be very careful that this dialogue must not be led by people who, in the first place, are responsible for the causality of the problems. So that's what I'm saying to Brigadier Leabam. Otherwise, this thing will fall flat on its face. There's a good chance that the dialogue may produce something, but there's also another chance that things can go worse.
What could it produce? Because I'm just trying to think here. Like, Okay, fine. We're going to have to talk about our challenges. But as you said, we know what the problems are. For me, what I'm looking forward to with the dialogue is how is government going to treat whatever it's going to gather from South Africans? Because you can't just say, oh, yeah, we've heard you, you said this, but we're not going to do anything about it. And how are they going to rationalize that in Parliament? Because, and I use the same example all the time. If South Africans say, we want the death penalty back, again, you've opened the door. You said, let's talk. Are you willing to take the risk to implement what South Africans want? Because you must still go to Parliament and advocate for, okay, the majority of people have said this. Or is it going to be a matter of, oh, as the ANC or as the GNU, we must still sit and say and pick and choose what is better to implement, what is not better to implement?
Fortunately, we're not going into that dialogue. Remember, it's not the best thing. It's not the best thing that you want. If it was according to me, why should I dialogue? Let's implement what we've done. But because they've come with this thing, don't be a spoiler. Let's find a way of going to direct this thing. Like I say, we're going to go there to make sure that the arsonist who started this fire last night doesn't come back as a well-dressed leader of the fire brigade today. That's very, very important.
They are, though.
Now, but we are going there. Also, it's not a country that is absent or void of basics. We have a constitution. The dialogue takes into account that there is a constitution in the country, and it is going to form the basis of a lot of those discussions. So we're not discussing in a vacuum. This constitution has got all sorts of rules, regulations. It's got sections which are dealing with human rights,
It
the
can,
land.
still,
all
it
the-
can also be changed,
Yeah,
right?
of course,
Especially if
constitutions-
people say crime is a big
Yeah.
thing, JBV, let's
Let
bring
me finish
back
the
this.
point I was making, Clement. That's the foundation, the basis upon. We are not standing in a street and starting something new. I agree with you. There is a constitution that must guide. And I'm saying a lot of things which are there in the constitution. They're so powerful, we should have done them. So the questions are going to be how to get here. Why were these things not done? Of course, second is whatever is going to be discussed there must find some way of being legislated. And the government must be held accountable to that. But of course, the dialogue itself doesn't have power to force a government. That's why it's important for the government to be part of that thing, to give us an assurance. As this thing has been established by the president, so he can't run away from this one. He established this thing, the government-led thing as well, or government participation, not led, so that the results of those discussions must find expression in implementation in some kind of law legislation that's going to be passed related to that. Coming to the point that we have raised, this dialogue is a risk. It's a risk as well. It doesn't mean that everything's going to be hunky-dory. People can come again with the death penalty. I was in their death cells. I understand this thing. They say, let this thing come back. So we've got to in relation to the Constitution, how do we see the
Because it's weird to, and by the way, I don't agree with the death penalty coming back, but it's weird to open the door and say, we genuinely want to hear where you think this country needs to go. And when people tell you where they think the country needs to go, and you say, oh, no, that's actually not going to work because it's against our constitution. But you've opened the door to say, I want to hear you.
We assume, the assumption is that what is in the Constitution arising over the dialogue of 1984 is good. Unless we're saying the Constitution is a bad thing, then the discussion must be.
Some people believe there are weaknesses with our
weaknesses I accept, so people can come with those things, but as long as the dialogue is not overthrowing the Constitution,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's not like the apartheid Constitution, all of it had to go, all of it. This time we've got a good basis. 90% of this Constitution is good. There will be other things there.